Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, I would like to announce something. I am horribly, horribly fucking disgusted with Shadow of War. Surprise! 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 Fucking surprise. I am pissed over a video game set in Tolkien's mythos. But it gets there's a lot. There's a lot. Like there were so many fucking people who would sit there consistently telling me, "Oh, well Darth is just a game. Like fucking get over it. Like fucking get over it, man. It's just a fucking game." Like I don't know why you're so pissed off over a fucking video game. Like, oh my god, like all you do is just bitch about like, Lord of the Rings and you just talk and suck off Tolkien. But here's the thing. When you establish a movie franchise, a book franchise, or a video game franchise set in an established world, you need to do that world justice. You have to. It's not your world. It's not. Somebody else breathed life into that setting, a beloved setting, especially if it's a beloved setting. You need to do full fucking justice to that setting. Why do you think a lot of remakes are fucking despised? Because they change so much of what was established. It's why so many people can't just like if a book writer, like an author dies, like oh god, I forgot his fucking name. Son of a bitch. It was right on the tip of my tongue. Uh oh fuck me. Frank Herbert. Frank Herbert of Dune. Like Frank Herbert's writing is iconic. And when he passed away, I think it's Kevin Anderson and his son Brian worked on it, and it's just wholly different. And there's a lot of like Dune fans of the books that just cannot enjoy the books after his death. And that's because they change so much. And they do. They change things dramatically. They bring in clones of everybody, and then they're like, "Oh, well, there's these big robot alien armies that are just going to wipe out everybody." And Leto the Second foresaw this as a giant sandworm emperor, and so he's been breeding sandworms that can live in the oceans and stuff, and like it gets fucking insane. And so that's why a lot of people don't like that. Uh, Dune the movie, like there's a reason why a lot of people always say the book is better, because they're right. Because they have to because they change, like movie producers and writers and directors and actors change everything about books. There's a few books that are translated almost perfectly into cinema. So why do I not why do I hate Shadows of Mordor or Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War? Simple. It bastardizes the lore, it destroys the setting, and completely it is just completely pointless. It's a completely pointless story. They hype the story up to be this grandiose epic adventure, this amazing story of revenge. But it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. Like you'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind to actually believe. Uh, yeah, you'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind to believe that Talion is going to succeed. He's not. He's not. It's an established setting. A heavily, almost solid, straight black fucking line. of a setting because Warner Brothers decides to set it between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. In the 50 to 60-year gap between both stories, they set this. So I'm gonna skip over Shadow of Mordor. Earlier, like one of my earliest shows, I actually was bitching about it because one of my friends was like, "Oh, you should play Shadow of Mordor. It's a really good game." Like, okay, I get it's a good game. Story though, like story wise, like in a game like this, they build up the story. Like, there's a lot of things that are tied to this story. Like, you have to, like, you have to follow the story because it's set in an established universe. This game could have been done in in its own fantasy setting, but they didn't do that. Why didn't they do that? Because Lord of the Rings is an established setting that is beloved by all, and it's just a brand name. It's a brand name. You look at Lord of the Rings and you go, "Oh, that looks like a fun game. I like Lord of the Rings. I like the movies. I like the Hobbits or the Hobbit movies. I'll play it." But if you know anything about Lord of the Rings, you'll go, "Wait, what? Huh? What the what?" So let's get into Shadow of War. So Shadow of War follows like exactly at the ass end of Shadow of Mordor. Talion Talion defeats Sauron. If I'm like, it's been a while. It's been a long time since I've actually like watched a playthrough of Shadow of Mordor, so I'm a little hazy. But he had to fight Sauron's lieutenants, if I remember correctly, which doesn't make sense at all in the legendarium. Uh, doesn't make a fucking lick of sense at all. At all. Like the fact that Talion is a ranger of Gondor guarding the Black Gate of Mordor, that makes no sense. It doesn't. But yeah, the three Black Numenorian captains, the Hammer, Tower, and Black Hand of Sauron. Like, they do not exist. They're made up for this story. You could have easily done you could have easily called them like the Hammer of Doom, the Tower of Doom, and the Black Hand of Doom. You could have done any fucking like generic Dark Lord. And so uh like he defeats them. Fucking Celebrimbor, who is the crafter of the well, he does. Okay, so the thing is, Celebrimbor did not forge the One Ring. Sauron did. Celebrimbor forged the other rings of power, namely the three rings, the three elven rings. And so Sauron kills him, and now in this game, because it's supposed to be canon with the you know with 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 the legendarium, uh he becomes a wraith. How, I don't know. I think it's because he got stabbed by Sauron, but he becomes a wraith. Okay, doesn't make a lick of fucking sense because to become a wraith, you need to be corrupted by a ring of power. Like, fucking Christ. But also, Celebrimbor had his elven smiths of Eurasian craft the seven rings for the dwarf lords and nine for the for men. And then Sauron assaulted Eregion, had a war against the elves, pushed them back to Lindon, and yeah, basically it's the pretty much what sparked the fire for the free peoples of Middle Earth, because it initiated the war of the elves and Sauron, and then that would later go on to cause the last alliance of men and elves. So you defeat so going back, you defeat them, you defeat the fucking the Black Numenorian captains. And then Celebrimbor wishes to depart for Valinor, which he can't technically because he's a wraith, and because he's a wraith, he will not be allowed into the halls of Mondos. And then Talion convinces him to stay to overthrow Sauron. And then Talion declares that he's going to fucking forge a ring of power. And so Shadow of War picks up right then and there, where they both travel to Mount Doom, to the cracks of Doom, and forge a ring of power. And immediately, once this ring is complete, Celebrimbor is abducted by Shelob. And she's like, hand over the ring. This ring of power that's free of Sauron's corruption. And I'll give you Celebrimbor, this wraith back. And Talion's like, okay. So he gives it to her. And then she uses it to see into the future. And she's like, I see a stronghold, a Gondorian stronghold in Mordor called Minas Ithil. And it's under siege by Sauron's forces because it 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 holds a Palantir. And whoever possesses it can see anything they wish. Here's the first hiccup. Um, this is set in the Third Age. And the reason this is a hiccup is Bilbo's adventure happens in 2941 of the Third Age. And the War of the fucking Ring, if I remember correctly, oh god. Hang on, I'm smoking a cigarette. Also, I'm a thirsty boy. Good old Jack and Coke. But yeah. So the War of the Ring happens in 3018. So this story takes place between 2941 and 3018. Here's the problem though. In 2002 of the Third Age, Minas Ithil fell and became Minas Morgul, and the Palantir was captured by Sauron. Let that sink in for a second. This this game is trying to say that Sauron's forces are attacking Minas Ithil 900 years after it was actually taken. Let that sink in for a second. Like they've been talking it up, like, oh, be faithful to the canon, and it's supposed to be canon. This is going to take place like between the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, go to this place that's already been captured, but it's not, and try and take the Palantir from Sauron and his forces. And so Talion goes to Minas Ithil, and there's Gondorians there, and the city the city is still being held by Gondor. And so Talion and Celebrimbor argue over what to do. Talion wants to help save the people because he's a Gondorian, and Celebrimbor wants to take the Palantir. And so they decide, oh hey, we'll fuck off with the orcs and push them back. And then Castamir, who's the captain of like the forces, uh, he just you know betrays them because the Witch King of Angmar captured his daughter Idril, who was in the city, and then after he opens the gates for the orcs to take over Minas Ithil, he's killed by the Witch King, and Talion barely escapes. And then the only reason why he escapes is an elven assassin working on Galadriel's behalf saves him. And then the Witch King seizes Minas Ithil, renames it Minas Morgul, and Sauron realizes that Shelob has Celebrimbor's ring and sends the Nazgul to attack her. Talion goes back, saves Shelob, and she gives him the ring and tells him, oh, the fate of Middle Earth is in your hands. And thus begins, the main chunk of the game. You use the ring to dominate orcs and build your army. And you're also saving Gondorian survivors. Apparently, you help the forest guard Karnan defeat the Balrog Tar Goroth. And you hunt the Nazgul with the elven assassin. And then once you've amassed an army strong enough to assault Barad-dûr, you face off against Isildur, who's been corrupted, into a Nazgul. Yes, yes, because Isildur wasn't shot by many orc arrows at the Gladden Fields when he was ambushed on his way back to Arnor with the One Ring in tow. And so Talion, Talion beats Isildur, and he looks into his mind, and he's like, "Oh, I was corrupted by the One Ring," and so Talion's like, "I release your spirit," and he kills him instead of controlling him. And Celebrimbor gets pissed, and then Talion's like, "Wait a minute, Celebrimbor's the bad guy." Because he's just like Sauron. He's just this horrible fucking prick that just wants to rule over everything. And so fucking Celebrimbor is like, "Oh, you don't want to you don't want to follow my advice and do what I want to fucking do anymore? Well, fine." And he possesses the elven assassin. And then because Celebrimbor was essentially keeping Talion alive because Talion was practically dead when he was fucking stabbed in the first game, Shelob visits him in a vision, and she tells him fight the good fight. Like you got to keep on going. If you don't stop Celebrimbor from enslaving Sauron, he's going to march onto the rest of Middle Earth and do exactly what Sauron wants to do. And so Talion puts on the Ring of Power that Isildur was wearing as a Nazgul. How, I don't know. He was shot in the back and chest and fell into a river, and that's how the ring fell into the fucking river and was lost for almost a millennia. And then he assaults Minas Morgul, defeats the Witch King, then takes possession of the Palantir, sees that Celebrimbor and this elf assassin are assaulting Sauron. And right when Celebrimbor tries to dominate Sauron, Sauron cuts off the elven assassin's ring finger and merges himself with Celebrimbor. And so, because of that, Sauron and Celebrimbor's spirits are trapped in Barad-dûr, fighting for dominance over who is the dominant personality. And what does Talion do? Oh, he goes, "Oh, hey, I'm just gonna chill here at Minas Morgul. I'm gonna chill here at Minas Morgul, and just oh my god, this fucking game. This game. It just kills my soul. Like, goddamn. Talion decides to sit in Minas Morgul and use it to keep Sauron's forces contained in Mordor. And over like a couple decades, he becomes a Nazgul. And he leaves Minas Morgul with the other ring wraiths to find Frodo in the One Ring. Like, really? Really? Like, so the whole plot was pointless. The whole fucking plot was pointless. Absolutely fucking pointless. There was no point whatso fucking ever for the plot. There was no point in being invested in the characters. There was no point in actually caring about Celebrimbor or Talion or the elfin assassin or like Shelob turning in from like a monstrous fucking spider, which is like her true fucking form because her mother is Ungoliant, which is a giant fuck off spider from the deepest, darkest pits of the void. Like, no, let's turn her into a sexy lady. Let's have a Balrog. Because that there was one in the fucking movies. There was one in the book. I mean, yeah, the Silmarillion had fucking like Gothmog, Lord of Balrogs, and his whole fucking like all of Morgoth's lieutenants were Balrogs, if not dragons. But fuck it. Toss in a fucking toss in a forest god, toss in a fucking Balrog. Have the Nazgul get hunted down. Have Isildur be a Nazgul. Fuck it. Fuck it. Like, wait, you think we should do this as its own setting? Fuck it. Fuck it. Don't even don't even try. Like, if we don't slap Lord of the Rings on it and we don't use the things from Lord of the Rings, we're not going to be making as much money. Even though we keep talking, hyping up that gameplay. It's why I don't. It's why I don't fucking. It's why I don't listen to people that will sit there and tell me like, "Oh well, it's just a game. You shouldn't care about the franchise that it's tied to. Like, you shouldn't care about any of that." Nah, nah. Don't. I don't like I said earlier. Like, Darth, it's just a fucking game, man. Like, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ! It's like, no. Like, no. Like, when they're making trailers showing like Balrogs and orcs and Sauron and Mordor and the like the Mountain of Fire and the Cracks of Doom and Celebrimbor with his forging hammer forging a fucking one ring of power sitting in a fucking like volcano, and you see the fucking Sauron just standing there overlooking like the plain of Gorgoroth and looking at Mount Doom. Like when you see fucking Minas Ithil collapsing and you see fucking all kind like trolls and shit like that and Uruks. Like yeah, like they are hyping it up by showing you Lord of the Rings stuff. Look at this. There's Balrogs in this game. There's Balrogs and there's orcs and Sauron's here, and look, the nine Nazgul. Like they're here. You get to fight them. Like yeah, they're using the fucking lore to hype up the game even further. The fucking first title of the game, like the first title of this franchise, was Shadow of Mordor. They're using the fucking goddamn game. They are using the goddamn game to hype up like how awesome it is that you get to play in Middle Earth. Open world. It's an open world game set in Mordor. Ooh, look how cool it is. Look how awesome this is. Like, can you believe it? Can you believe that you get to fight a Balrog? You're a half race, half human ranger. Oh my god. Look how cool this is. Check it out. Like, yeah, they're fucking hyping this fucking game up based off of Tolkien's lore. So when like I'm a big massive fucking fan of it and they're completely bastardizing it, yeah, I'm gonna get a little annoyed. I'm gonna get a little annoyed. I'm gonna be like, yeah, fuck this game. Fuck this game sideways with a hose. Like, take something you like and have that bastardized. And you'd be sitting there in the same, you'd be in my same boots. You'd be in the same fucking position. People who like people who like the Joker, people who like Batman, people who like Suicide Squad fucking hated the movie Suicide Squad. Why did they hate the Suicide Squad? Because it bastardized the characters, because it ruined the Joker, because it's just a horrible shit fest of a game. Not game, movie. Like they just made it shit. Batman v Superman is a bastardization of the Dark Knight. You all know it. You all know it to be true. You can't look me in the eyes and go, nah, they didn't bastardize it. I don't think they bastardized it. It's like, yeah, they bastardized it. Like it has nothing to do with the Dark Knight other than the fight. And that's bastardized because we don't have the actual context of the fight from the comic. What was the biggest thing? What was the biggest thing that everybody was freaking out when they dropped the first teaser trailer at Comic Con? Batman in his Dark Knight Returns power armor, flipping the fucking switch to the bat signal, looking up into the sky, and it's rainy, and there's Superman staring down at him, hyping it up based off of like pre-existing canon, pre-existing like a pre-existing setting or pre-existed setting. Star Wars does the same thing. Fucking the new Blade Runner does that. Fucking every single goddamn motherfucking game or book, like books based off of movies, or movies based off of books, movies based off of video games, movies based off of comic books, games based off of movies, games based off of comic books. Like everything fucking like if it's an established fucking setting, it's gonna get bastardized. I have yet to really see a fully 100% accurate representation of something, barring maybe No Country for Old Men and The Road. Like, that's Christ. Yeah. I honestly can't think of anything else that was a book that's actually good. Christ, I love the Beowulf movie, and that's a bastard. That's a horrible bastardization of the fucking epic. Uh, let's see. Blade Runner has no real connection other than Deckard replicants, and that's about it. And being set in a semi-post-apocalyptic cyberpunk dystopian future, with Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Um, the movie Dune has practically it's just a fucking mess compared to the book, and I think the book is semi a mess. Um, Sherlock Holmes, like the new ones, Robert Downey Jr., they're okay, but I think the Peter Cushing version of Sherlock Holmes is probably the closest to the book. Uh, the Benedict Cumberbatch version is just a piece of garbage. Um, let's see, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, for as praised as it is a bastardization of the book. Uh, Lost World, even more so. Uh, John Carpenter's The Thing. That, I would say, is probably one of the few times where I can say the movie is far superior to the book. And it is. Like, if you've ever read Who Goes There, the short story, it's far fucking better. It by and large is leagues ahead than the short story. So yeah, like, take whatever you like, take whatever you love, and just remember, yeah, like, I like this. They ruined it. Happens. Happens all the fucking time. It's probably why we haven't really gotten a full fledged, like, big budget Lovecraftian story. Because nobody's really clamoring to try and fucking work on it, because they know it just be so wholly different to what Lovecraft had written. Um, but yeah, like, fucking Shadow of War is, like, plot wise, is a fucking steaming pile of dog shit.